By the time Lieutenant Rachel Summers reached O'Hare International Airport, Chicago was a city on fire. Not metaphorically, literally. Plumes of smoke twisted into the sky, mixing with the metallic green haze that now hung over the skyline. Streetlights flickered in a nervous rhythm, cars lay abandoned along cracked asphalt, and the distant wails of sirens echoed like ghosts through the empty streets. Rachel gritted her teeth and adjusted the strap of her tactical vest. She had seen war before: Afghanistan, Iraq, but this was different. There was no human enemy here, no predictable strategy, no face to negotiate with. It was something far older, far crueler. Something from the stars. Her boots pounded against the cracked tarmac as she moved with purpose. Around her, the chaos of civilians fleeing the city played out in panicked motion. Families clutched each other as they ran, overturned luggage and abandoned vehicles, creating a labyrinth of obstacles. Rachel's mind catalogued every potential danger, every escape route, every tactical advantage. She was a soldier trained for combat, but instinct told her she had never prepared for this level of destruction. She spotted Dr. Samuel Carter at the airport's makeshift command center, a reinforced hangar where military personnel and scientists had gathered in a desperate attempt to coordinate a response. Samuel's usually calm blue eyes were wide with panic, scanning multiple screens displaying satellite feeds, city layouts, and anomalous atmospheric readings. Papers littered the desk in front of him, but Samuel hardly noticed. His hands moved with frantic precision across holographic panels, interpreting patterns in the destruction that no one else could see. "Lieutenant Summers," he said, his voice tight. "You're just in time." He pointed toward the live feed from downtown Chicago. A massive alien ship hung over the city like a predator, its black, jagged hull absorbing the dim light of the horizon. A beam of violet energy lanced from its undercarriage, slicing through the facade of a skyscraper as if it were paper. Glass exploded outward in a shower of sparks, and beneath it, people ran screaming in every direction. Rachel's stomach churned, but she forced herself to focus. "What are we dealing with, Doctor?" Samuel swallowed hard, his mind racing. "They're precise. Coordinated. Adaptive. Every military response we've tried fails. Their technology isn't just superior, it's alive. It reacts to our attacks faster than we can even calculate." Rachel stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. "So conventional weapons are useless?" "Exactly." Samuel's voice was steady now, the scientist in him taking over the panic. "It's not just power. It's intelligence. It's strategy. And we have no idea what their ultimate objective is." Outside, the sky had taken on an unnatural green hue, streaked with violet and metallic reflections. A low hum vibrated through the air, a sound that pressed into the bones rather than the ears. Rachel felt it in her chest and jaw, a resonance that seemed to carry a message, though she could not understand the words. She looked back at Samuel. "How long before they hit here?" He shook his head, his expression grim. "Minutes, maybe seconds. We have to assume they've already targeted the airport as a strategic hub. And once they start, evacuation is unlikely." A sudden roar tore through the air as a smaller alien craft dove past the hangar, firing beams that vaporized parked vehicles with terrifying precision. Rachel dove behind a concrete barrier instinctively, her training kicking in. Around them, soldiers scrambled, returning fire with weapons that seemed to spark and fizz against the alien energy. "They're immune," Samuel muttered, his hands trembling over the holographic interface. "Every projectile, every missile, it's useless. They can anticipate our attacks." Rachel's jaw tightened. "Then we don't fight conventionally. We improvise." Before Samuel could respond, the first official communication from the Galactic Council crackled through their makeshift network. The message was simple, clear, and chilling. "Observation only. Interference prohibited." Samuel's eyes widened. "They're watching? And they can't intervene?" Rachel's grip on her rifle tightened. "Looks like it. We're on our own." Minutes later, an explosion rocked the hangar. Dust and debris filled the air, coating the walls in gray ash. Rachel coughed but pushed forward, scanning for threats. Soldiers around her were disoriented, some injured, some frozen in fear. She barked orders with sharp authority, organizing them into defensive positions as Samuel continued analyzing data. "They're not just attacking," Samuel said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "They're learning. Every move we make, they adapt. And I think," he paused, shaking his head, "I think they've already calculated our weaknesses." Rachel's eyes swept the sky again. Another massive ship loomed overhead, hovering silently, bristling with weapons. She could feel the heat of its energy beam charging, the air warping around it. She felt a cold certainty settle in her gut. This wasn't just an invasion. This was the beginning of the end for Earth, if they failed. Hours passed in a blur. Rachel and Samuel moved from one command point to another, coordinating with the few remaining military units. The sounds of destruction were constant: sirens, explosions, the hum of alien engines, the screams of people caught in the crossfire. And still, the Galactic Council's message echoed in their minds, a reminder that no one would come to save them. By late evening, Rachel and Samuel managed to secure a military transport aircraft. It was old and underarmed, but it was enough to get them out of the immediate danger zone. As they prepared for takeoff, Samuel glanced at the city one last time. The skyline was a jagged silhouette of smoke and fire, buildings shattered like matchsticks. "We're losing," he admitted. "Fast." Rachel put a firm hand on his shoulder. "We're not losing yet. Not while we're still breathing. Not while we're still here." The engines roared, lifting the plane above the chaos below. From the sky, the destruction was almost beautiful in its terrifying symmetry. Entire blocks of the city vaporized with precision, streets ripped open as if by invisible claws. Samuel's fingers flew across the console, tracking the alien ship's movement. "They're following a pattern," he murmured. "It's deliberate. They're preparing something bigger." Rachel didn't reply immediately. She focused on flying the aircraft through the debris-choked airspace, her mind racing through scenarios, escape routes, and tactical options. She had led soldiers into firefights, into ambushes, into death, and she knew instinctively that this would be worse. Much worse. And then, over every remaining communication channel, a single, chilling message appeared carved in light and shadow across the clouds over every major city. "Prepare. The reckoning comes." Rachel swallowed hard, her hands tightening on the controls. She glanced at Samuel, whose face was pale and set with determination. "They're not just attacking, they're warning us," she said softly. "But why?" Samuel shook his head, eyes fixed on the horizon. "Because they're not here to negotiate. They're here to conquer. And if we survive, it won't be by luck, it'll be because we're smarter than they expect." Rachel stared forward, past the shimmering clouds and the ruins below. "Then we better be smarter." The plane ascended into the night, leaving the city behind, but the memory of its screams, its smoke, and its flames would haunt them. And somewhere deep within the alien fleet, something watched, calculated, and waited for their next move. Earth had just awakened to a war it didn't know existed. And Lieutenant Rachel Summers and Dr. Samuel Carter were about to discover that surviving it would require more than courage, it would require every shred of human ingenuity, resilience, and defiance they could muster. Washington, D.C., had become unrecognizable, a scarred, smoking skeleton of its former self. The Capitol lay in ruins, the dome split open like a cracked egg. The White House was a smoldering husk, its walls blackened and twisted. Streets were rivers of fire and debris, with overturned cars and shattered concrete blocking any movement. The air was thick with the acrid smell of burning metal and ozone, punctuated by the distant screams of those still trapped beneath rubble or fleeing for their lives. Lieutenant Rachel Summers guided her small convoy of survivors through the chaos, the reinforced military transport aircraft that had carried them from Chicago now grounded at the edge of the city. Soldiers and civilians alike followed her orders without question, their fear tempered by a desperate determination. In the wreckage of the Pentagon's remnants, she established a temporary command center, barricading entrances and setting up surveillance drones salvaged from both human and alien technology. Dr. Samuel Carter, still clutching his portable interface, worked feverishly on deciphering what little they could salvage from the alien devices. His hands shook from exhaustion and adrenaline, yet his mind moved with the relentless precision of a man possessed. On the screens before him, streams of alien code danced like living filaments of light, patterns that shifted and evolved with terrifying intelligence. "They're everywhere," Samuel muttered. "Every major city, every population center, they're hitting with surgical precision. And their attacks, they're not random. There's a pattern, a strategy. It's almost like they're testing us." Rachel scanned the horizon from a shattered window, the green-tinged smoke curling skyward, the violet streaks of alien energy slicing through the skyline. "Testing us?" she asked, her voice tense. "What does that mean?" Samuel's eyes didn't leave the screens. "They're learning. Every move we make, every attempt to fight back, it's recorded, analyzed, and adapted against. And I think they're preparing for something bigger. Something global." Rachel clenched her fists. She had faced ambushes in deserts, jungle firefights, urban combat, but nothing compared to this. No human weapon, no strategy, no training could fully counter a foe that could see and anticipate every tactic. And yet, she knew they had no choice but to fight. The survivors were restless, jittery, hungry, frightened, but alive. Rachel moved among them, giving orders, assigning roles, and instilling a semblance of discipline. "Listen to me," she shouted above the din. "We don't have the luxury of fear. We don't just survive by hiding, we survive by being smarter, faster, and more adaptable than they think. You follow my lead, and we might just make it through the night." As night fell over the shattered city, the alien ships hovered silently above, their dark hulls blotting out the stars. Occasional beams of energy flashed downward, disintegrating entire blocks in seconds. The hum of their engines vibrated through the ground, a constant reminder that nowhere was safe. Rachel watched the streets below, listening for the faint sounds of survivors signaling for help, of looters preying on the weak, of alien patrols sweeping through the ruins. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the occasional flare of energy from above or the distant collapse of a building. Samuel hunched over his device, muttering to himself as he analyzed the alien network. "I think I've found something," he said at last, his voice barely audible. Rachel moved closer, her eyes narrowing. "What is it?" she asked. Samuel tapped the interface, and a series of shifting patterns became visible. "It's a signal, embedded in their communication systems. They're not just coordinating among themselves, they're connected to something else. Something much larger." Rachel frowned. "Like what?" Samuel shook his head. "I don't know. But it's massive. It's as if they've called in reinforcements, or at least, something that amplifies their control. If I can tap into it, maybe we can find a weakness. Maybe we can disrupt their coordination." Rachel's mind raced. The stakes were higher than ever, but even a slim chance of striking back was worth pursuing. "Do it," she said firmly. "We don't have time to debate the risks." Meanwhile, across the city, survivors had begun organizing into makeshift squads, scavenging weapons, food, and supplies. Rachel assigned teams to scout for resources, guard the command center, and rescue civilians trapped under debris. The Pentagon ruins became a hive of frantic activity, a microcosm of resistance in a city designed to fall. But every moment of hope came with a harsh reminder of mortality. Alien strikes continued, faster, more precise, adapting to every maneuver. Soldiers firing at drones watched as their rounds evaporated mid-air, sparks flying where bullets met an invisible shield. Explosions shook the command center, sending dust and glass raining down on those inside. Rachel dived to shield a young volunteer, rolling behind a desk as a beam disintegrated the wall where she had been moments before. "We're running out of time," Samuel shouted over the din, his eyes locked on the data streaming across his device. "If I don't figure this out soon, there won't be anything left to save." Rachel gritted her teeth. "Then we make time. Every second counts. Move." Days blended into nights as the human survivors fought to stay alive. Samuel continued to decode the alien signal, discovering layers of patterns and protocols that revealed not only their strategy but also hints of vulnerability. "If we can disrupt the hive mind," he explained to Rachel one evening, exhaustion evident in every line of his face, "their coordination will falter. Their attacks will become chaotic. It's our best chance. Rachel's expression hardened. And how do we get close enough to do that? Samuel hesitated. It's dangerous. Probably suicidal. But, if we can reach the flagship. Rachel didn't need him to finish. She had led missions into fire and chaos, had watched friends die for a cause greater than themselves. This was no different. Only the enemy was something beyond imagination. Then we find a way, she said firmly. We get to that ship. And we hit it where it hurts. The survivors, despite exhaustion and fear, clung to that glimmer of hope. Under Rachel's leadership, they repaired what weapons they could, salvaged vehicles, and built barricades from rubble. In the darkness, amidst the echoes of alien engines, the hum of destruction, and the flickering light of fires, humanity found its stubborn heartbeat. And then, across every remaining communication channel, a single, terrifying message appeared, etched in the night sky above every major city. Prepare. The reckoning comes. Rachel's eyes narrowed. They're not just attacking, they're warning us. And they know we can hear them. Samuel's hands trembled as he typed furiously. They're not here to negotiate. This is conquest. And if we survive only because we're willing to fight smarter than they expect. Rachel looked across the ruined streets, at the volunteers, soldiers, and civilians who had survived by sheer will. Then that's what we do, she said, voice steady. We fight. We adapt. We survive. For the first time in days, a fragile calm fell over the command center. The survivors knew that the war was far from over. The enemy above was intelligent, adaptive, and relentless, but Earth still had something the aliens couldn't calculate: human ingenuity, resilience, and the refusal to surrender. And somewhere in the alien fleet, massive, shadowed ships waited. They observed. They calculated. They prepared. But on the ground below, a small army of humans was preparing too, unsure, frightened, but resolute. The battle for survival had only just begun. Washington had fallen, but the resistance had awakened. And as Rachel stared at the green-tinged horizon, she understood something essential: humanity might be fragile, but it was not finished. Not yet. By the time the alien flagship pierced Earth's orbit, the planet below was a patchwork of ruin and resilience. Cities lay in smoldering ruins, their skeletal remains silhouetted against the glow of fires that refused to die. Humanity's governments had collapsed under the weight of the attacks. Communication networks were crippled. Entire continents trembled under the precise, relentless power of the invaders. Yet, amid the devastation, pockets of human resistance had emerged. Led by Lieutenant Rachel Summers, these fragments of civilization had coalesced into a determined force: soldiers, scientists, volunteers, and civilians who refused to surrender. They moved with quiet coordination, scavenging weapons, repairing vehicles, and fortifying the last surviving command posts. And at the center of it all was Dr. Samuel Carter, still feverishly analyzing the alien hive mind network that had dictated the pace and brutality of the attacks. "This is it," Samuel said one evening, his voice tight with both exhaustion and exhilaration. His eyes glimmered in the dim light of the makeshift command center. "The flagship is controlling everything. The drones, the satellites, the energy weapons, they're all connected to it. If we can disrupt the hive network, all of their coordination collapses. They'll become vulnerable." Rachel's expression hardened, the weight of the mission pressing down on her shoulders. "And the catch?" Samuel looked away, swallowing hard. "The device has to be deployed on the flagship itself. That's in orbit. It's almost certainly going to kill us." Rachel's jaw tightened. She had stared death in the face before, but nothing like this. The alien fleet wasn't just powerful, it was intelligent, adaptive, and merciless. Yet, in that intelligence lay a potential flaw, a point they could exploit. "Then we do it anyway," she said quietly. "If we don't, humanity is finished. This isn't just survival. It's defiance." The plan took shape quickly, with the urgency that only desperation can create. Rachel led a team of soldiers and volunteers to commandeer a small alien craft captured from one of the fallen ships. Its sleek, dark hull seemed almost alive, pulsing faintly with violet energy. Samuel interfaced with the alien technology, deciphering the flight systems and energy shields. Every second counted. Every mistake would be fatal. The ascent to orbit was a nightmare. The alien ships patrolled relentlessly, energy beams slicing through the atmosphere, vaporizing entire city blocks in seconds. Rachel maneuvered the vessel with surgical precision, weaving through debris and enemy fire. Below, the Earth's surface glowed with devastation, cities reduced to skeletal remains, rivers steaming where missiles and lasers had scorched the terrain. Inside the ship, the team was tense. Samuel worked on the device that would disrupt the Hive network, his fingers flying across alien controls that seemed to resist human touch. Almost there, he muttered, beads of sweat running down his temples. Rachel glanced at the monitors. How close are we? Samuel didn't answer immediately. The alien fleet was converging. Drones swarmed around them like predatory insects, weapons cutting arcs of energy that shimmered in the darkness of space. Close, he said finally. But it's going to get rough. They'll adapt as soon as they realize we're here. The first wave of drones collided with their ship. Rachel's hands moved with reflexive precision, weaving and dodging, while soldiers fired whatever weapons they could salvage. Sparks flew as energy beams struck the hull. One drone slammed into the side, throwing the ship into a spin that nearly sent everyone tumbling into the zero-gravity cabin. Focus! Rachel shouted, stabilizing the vessel. We survive this, or we don't survive at all. Hours, or what felt like hours in the tense silence of space combat, passed. The flagship loomed ever larger, a colossal shadow of black steel against the stars. Rachel guided the ship into its docking bay, barely escaping automated turrets and energy pulses. Every surface of the alien vessel seemed alive, shifting subtly, adapting. Finally, they breached the inner corridors of the flagship. Samuel connected the device to the central HiveMind node, the alien energy thrumming around them. This is it, he whispered. One wrong move, and we all die. Rachel stood beside him, scanning the area for threats, every sense heightened. The hum of the flagship seemed to resonate in their bones, a reminder that the enemy was still aware, still calculating. Do it, she said, voice steady despite the chaos. The device activated. Brilliant, jagged arcs of violet energy erupted from the core, spreading outward like a pulse through the Hive network. The flagship trembled violently, systems failing in a cascade. Lights flickered and died. Energy shields collapsed. Alien drones in orbit lost cohesion, spinning out of control, crashing into one another and the planet below. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. The team stared in disbelief at the devastation they had wrought, not just on the fleet, but on the invaders' ability to coordinate, to dominate, to conquer. Then came the shuddering collapse of the flagship itself. Rachel and Samuel barely escaped the blast, ejecting into the void in escape pods. They watched as the alien vessel broke apart, fragments scattering like falling stars across Earth's orbit. Back on the planet, the survivors cheered as alien drones fell from the sky, their energy weapons inert. Fires still burned, and cities still lay in ruins, but the threat that had seemed insurmountable had been disrupted. Humanity had won a chance to fight back, and that chance was enough. Rachel set her pod down near the remnants of Washington, stepping out into the smoky ruins. She surveyed the streets, where survivors, shaken, exhausted, but alive, emerged from hiding. Children clung to their parents, soldiers moved cautiously, rebuilding, reclaiming, defending. Samuel joined her, exhaustion etched into his features. We did it, he said softly, awe and disbelief in his voice. Rachel nodded, scanning the horizon. We survived. That's the first step. Now, we rebuild. We fight back. And if they come again? Samuel smiled faintly. We'll be ready. Above, the Galactic Council observed from their distant orbits. They had remained bound by treaty, unable to intervene directly, but the record of humanity's defiance was now etched across the stars. A fledgling species, against all odds, had survived. They had adapted. They had fought. And perhaps, one day, they would join the galaxy not as prey, but as equals. Rachel looked at the people emerging from the rubble, at the stubborn, unbroken heartbeat of humanity. "This isn't over," she said. "But for the first time, we're not just surviving. We're fighting back. And we'll never stop." As the first rays of sunlight broke through the smoke-choked sky, illuminating the ruins in pale gold, a quiet resolve settled over the survivors. The alien threat had been blunted, but the lesson was clear: Earth had awoken to a war far larger than itself. And this time, humanity was ready. The battle was over. The war for survival and respect in the galaxy was only beginning.